You're right, Anya, it's been a little while since I've done an isolate and create video, so this one it's going to be a follow-up to my progress on the Gruffalo Beds. In the last isolate and create, I'd added the footboard and the headboard to the beds, just the MDF sliding into the grooves that I created. In this one, I'm going to be cutting the shapes, going to be painting them, and then there's going to be a little bit of a twist at the end, so stick around for it. So where I'd left off last time, the MDF was still in a rectangular, square kind of shape. Not very interesting. So the first job was to cut some nice curves to give it some more interest, some more character, but to also remove any sharp edges to prevent any accidents if the kids end up climbing over the beds. Did a quick test fit again just for my own sanity to make sure that it was fitting okay and that the levels was right, so then I could turn my attention to the larger back panel and two smaller front panels as well. Those were cut with a jigsaw the exact same way. I wanted the wooden uprights to look a bit like there was tree trunks that had been chopped down, so I used the belt sander and a little bit of hand sanding to round over the edges and just make it a lot more rounded and smoother. Now off camera I did add some wood glue to the grooves to permanently fit in place the MDF boards, but there were some small gaps that I wanted to fill, and here's my first mistake. I thought I'd try out some car body filler. I've seen a lot of different YouTubers and makers use car body filler on MDF in particular because it's meant to set really quick and be really easy to sand and take paint well. Well, it definitely sets really quick. I tried mixing it together, and by the time I'd mixed it, stood up, walked around from the camera and started to fill it, it had already set. It had got to have been less than 20 seconds. No exaggeration there. My first thought was I'd mixed too much of the hardener, which I probably did, but I tried a lot less, and even then, it was setting in less than 30 seconds. So the amount that I was mixing up was minimal. I managed to get what I needed to fill filled, but as you can imagine, I didn't want the headache of trying to film it all when it was setting so quickly. So I just filled the joints off camera, and then I came back and sanded them all flush and smooth, ready for paint. Now painting caused me another headache. I'd got this old paint sprayer that I'd used on the previous superhero quad bunk beds that I'd made, and it worked pretty well on that. And I came back to use it this time, whether it's because it had been sitting for a long time. I tried to clean it as best as I can, but I just wasn't getting very good results at all. The paint was really splattering, it was running down where I'd oversprayed, and I gave up with it. And I went down the old fashioned route of a brush and a roller to get the base coat on. I tried an undercoat, and that was just far too watery for me. It was completely see-through after 2 coats, so I gave up with that and I used an eggshell paint as an undercoat. I know it's not ideal, but I've always had good results using eggshell paint on MDF as an undercoat. It goes on nice and easy in one coat, sands really well, and saves all the need for any kind of sealing on the edges of the MDF. Now once I'd got it all primed white and it was ready for the actual painting to begin, I'd roughly drawn on a kind of mural for a Gruffalo style forest. I'd had it in my head. I'm not the best drawer, I'm not an artist at all, but I was kind of pleased with how it turned out. I just had the pencil drawing, and then I used different acrylic paints to fill in the actual colours of the trees and the bushes and the ground, the sky, all that stuff. And it was going okay to some extent. The paint didn't cover very well, so I had to do 3 coats of every single colour. And the time was just dragging on and dragging on. No joke, just one headboard and one footboard that was probably halfway done in terms of painting the mural took me over 6 hours. So you can imagine how much work was involved in doing this, and I was looking at it and I thought the quality isn't that great, and that's when I had a brainwave, so I sanded it all off. Now I have got an idea, and I'll show you that a little bit later in the video, but first let's concentrate on the back of these boards. I went with a stippled green effect, so it would look like the back of a bush or the back of the tree, and this will never be seen on the bed that's got a headboard and footboard. You'll see it on the inside of the beds, so I think it's a good alternative. And I ended up painting the woodwork to the beds brown, and the way that this went on, I'm actually really pleased with it. I used a really cheap brush, and the lines that the brush left looked like wood. I know it's being painted onto wood anyway, but it really is a cartoony kind of style of wood, and I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I added a light cream colour to the top of the posts on the bed, and then used a black marker pen to make it look like the rings of the tree, and I'm really pleased with how this took out. It's the classic kind of cartoony style tree that's been chopped down, so I'm well happy with how that turned out. To help protect the paint, I gave it all a couple of coats of spray polyurethane. This took forever to dry, hours and hours. I literally gave it a good couple of days to make sure the tackiness had gone before applying the second coat. I got it done though, and it'll definitely add a lot more protection than just leaving the paint bare on its own. Now what am I going to do with that mural that I sanded all off after spending all those hours painting it? Well, I came up with a much better idea, and that's to use printed vinyl. So I got the sheets printed with the classic Gruffalo forest background, and I went about applying it to the boards. Now it was simple to some extent. It would be a lot easier if you had somebody to help. Using some painter's tape really helped to keep it all lined up and stopped it from moving too much. I made sure to have it printed oversized so I could get away with a little bit of movement and I could trim it all later on. I used a t-shirt rolled up to help smooth out all the bubbles and creases, and just worked my way along slowly until it was all applied and I could come back and lift up where I needed to remove any bubbles and any creases. As you can see, it is overhanging, so what I used was a scalpel to cut it all flush. Went nice and easy in the corners on the headboards and footboards, and I could smooth it all back down. And then for cutting the top edge, that nice curve that we cut in the MDF, I found a great technique. Literally hold the scalpel up against my thumb, use the knuckle of my finger against the board, and I could guide it really nice and easy, and it gave a great crisp edge. But this opened up some more problems. We've had some fantastic weather recently here in the UK, and I've been keeping the headboards, the footboards, that big panel, all in the conservatory. And the temperature in the conservatory these past few days reached over 45 degrees. Now I would have hoped this vinyl, being a permanent adhesive, would have held up to it, but it didn't. The edges started peeling. The centres was fine, they was all nicely adhered, but those curved edges and in the corners it was peeling back. So I had to go over it all, and what I did, I got spray adhesive, sprayed it into a little pot, and then applied it with a little paintbrush. So I peeled back all the edges all around the headboard, the footboard, the big back panel, and glued it all in place using it like that. Pushed it all back down, made sure it was all nice and smooth, and that's where I've left them for now. It's all set, and it has set, it's not peeled up again, which I'm thankful of. It's one of those things that if I'd done it in the beginning, it would have been a lot easier. I could have masked off and sprayed adhesive it all, but you live and learn. But I'm really pleased with how these are looking, and I hope that you agree too. They've been taking a lot longer than I first expected, but I'm enjoying it and I'm getting there, and hopefully it won't be too long before I can have another update with how I'm getting on with them. I want to say a massive thank you, as always, to all my Patreon supporters before I go. I really appreciate all your support, and I've had a brand new supporter this week, and that's Grace. So thank you so much, Grace, for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. If you've not subscribed already, make sure you click the subscribe button and then click the little bell icon next to it to get notifications whenever I upload a new video. You'll get a pop-up on your phone or an email letting you know I've put a video up. So thank you all for watching again, and I'll see you on the next one.
I tend to laughing instead of crying. And I hear that Prince Charles is the first royal to test positive for the virus. Makes you wonder who else has got it. One thing we can be sure of, it's not Andrew. The whole country has been social distancing from him for a while now. Speaking of criminals, since the lockdown, the police have been given new powers to arrest, which I totally understand. I just worry about those who do get arrested. I mean, it's not going to do much for the street cred inside. What are you in for? You don't want to know. I went out jogging twice in one day. Day 11 of laughing instead of crying, and I'm really starting to worry now. Not because of the 24-hour news cycle and all the updated figures that get put out there, but because my bag for life just split, and that's never a good omen. During tough times, it's more important than ever to look on the bright side. Even during a nationwide lockdown, there's always a positive to be found. I mean, me personally, I'm saving a fortune on date nights. We've actually managed to adapt to this lockdown. We've been having virtual date nights where we watch a film together on FaceTime. As long as she didn't see my screen, she could be watching whatever film she likes while I'm playing PlayStation. It was working out great until a bit of unfortunate timing. I shouted "get in" when I won a game of Call of Duty, but it just so happened to be at the exact moment that the Titanic started sinking. It's safe to say that from now on, there'll be no more virtual date nights. Positive from this situation, I can play as much Call of Duty